If you ever have to choose between protecting the ship and protecting the children, you lose the ship. Captain Daniel Mercer had repeated that sentence so many times over the years that it had become second nature. But on this quiet Tuesday morning, it sounded more like a comforting joke than a rule anyone would ever need. The civilian transport Morning Star glided peacefully through the Orion Commercial Corridor, her engines humming with the steady confidence of a vessel that had made the same route hundreds of times. Sunlight from a nearby yellow dwarf reflected across the observation dome, filling the passenger deck with warm golden light that almost made space feel like a lazy spring afternoon back on Earth. 28 kindergarten students pressed their tiny hands against the glass, pointing excitedly at cargo freighters, shimmering navigation buoys, and distant planets hanging like colorful marbles in the darkness. "Look, that one's purple," Oliver Brooks shouted, nearly bouncing out of his seat. "That's because of the atmosphere," Miss Claire Donovan answered with a smile. "Remember what we learned yesterday? Different gases make different colors," several children answered together, proud of themselves. Claire laughed softly. Exactly right. She had spent 8 years teaching kindergarten outside Denver before signing up for the Interstellar Education Exchange program. Most people thought taking 5- and 6-year-olds into space sounded terrifying. Claire thought it was the easiest age to teach wonder. Every question was honest. Every smile was real. Across the aisle, little Emma Hayes sat quietly hugging a stuffed astronaut rabbit that had clearly been repaired more than once. She watched the stars without saying much, her wide blue eyes taking in every passing ship. Captain Mercer stepped onto the passenger deck carrying a paper cup of coffee. His gray hair had more silver than brown these days, and years in the United States Navy had left him with the habit of noticing every unusual sound without ever looking nervous. "Morning, Captain," Claire greeted. "Everything's smooth. Couldn't ask for a better day," Mercer replied. "Traffic control says we'll reach the Galactic History Museum in about 45 minutes. Oliver raised his hand like he was back in class. "Captain, have you ever seen pirates?" Mercer smiled without missing a beat. "Only in old movies." The children giggled. "Real space is a lot more boring than cartoons." Claire rolled her eyes playfully. "Don't ruin their imagination." "I'm trying to help you survive the bus ride," Mercer joked. Laughter spread through the cabin. Even Emma smiled for the first time all morning. None of them noticed the small warning icon that briefly flickered across the navigation display before disappearing again. Down in the bridge, First Officer Megan Foster frowned at her console. "Captain," she called over the intercom. Mercer took one sip of coffee before answering. "Go ahead." "Probably nothing," Megan said. Long-range sensors picked up an unidentified vessel about 12 million miles out. It disappeared a few seconds later. Mercer glanced toward the children laughing behind him. "Smuggler? Maybe. Hard to tell." He looked through the observation dome one more time. Everything appeared perfectly ordinary. Families talking. Kids trading snacks. Teachers checking backpacks. A birthday banner someone had taped near the classroom section fluttered gently in the recycled airflow. Mercer pressed the intercom button. "Keep an eye on it. Let me know if it comes back." "Will do, Captain." He slipped the radio back into his pocket and smiled as Oliver held up a crayon drawing of their ship flying through space. "Think this belongs on the bridge?" Oliver asked proudly. Mercer studied the picture as though it belonged in a museum. "I think every captain should have artwork like this." The boy grinned from ear to ear. Far beyond the edge of civilian sensor range, another bridge remained silent except for the clicking of armored fingers across tactical controls. Captain Zhar'Korr stared at the image of the Morning Star rotating slowly above his display. No escort vessels. No military signatures. No weapons worth mentioning. Just another helpless civilian transport drifting through pirate territory. He leaned back in his command chair, showing rows of sharp teeth in what his crew recognized as complete confidence. "Prepare the boarding teams," he said calmly. "This will be over before their children even realize we're there." Captain Zhar'Korr had built his reputation on one simple belief. Civilian ships always surrendered, and frightened people always made expensive mistakes. For nearly 15 years, the Scarith Corsairs had drifted through the outer trade routes, striking transports that looked soft, isolated, and unimportant. Freight haulers, tourist cruisers, colonial ferries. Every successful raid had taught his crew the same lesson. Weak targets never fought back. Standing before the tactical display, Zhar'Korr folded his arms as holographic scans rotated slowly above the command table. The Morningstar looked almost laughably harmless. Its engines were built for efficiency instead of speed. Its hull carried bright educational markings instead of armored plating. Even its emergency beacon identified it as a licensed civilian educational vessel. One of the younger pirates tilted his head. "Captain, are we really wasting time on a school transport?" Zhar'Korr chuckled. "Do you know what schools carry?" The crew exchanged puzzled looks. "Families," he answered. "Teachers. Wealthy parents who buy expensive souvenirs. Medical supplies. Electronics. Personal jewelry. Easy cargo, and even easier negotiations." Another pirate studied the passenger manifest scrolling across the screen. 28 human children. For teachers. 7 crew members. His voice carried open amusement. "Children." Laughter spread across the bridge. "Humans bring their young into space now," one pirate joked. "They really are becoming comfortable." Zhar'Korr tapped the display with one sharp claw. "Comfort creates carelessness. Carelessness creates profit." He enlarged the engineering profile. No military escort. No hidden weapon systems. No combat drones. Standard civilian communication package. This ship belongs to us before we even arrive. Across the bridge, Navigation Officer Krell frowned at another screen. "Captain, there is something unusual." "Explain." "Their captain is a retired United States Navy officer." Zhar'Korr barely looked up. "Retired?" Krell nodded. "Yes." Then he spent his best years behind him. The captain dismissed the report with a wave. "Old soldiers make cautious civilians." The pirates laughed again. Nobody questioned the decision. Zhar'Korr had never lost a boarding operation. Back aboard the Morningstar, the mood remained wonderfully ordinary. Claire Donovan walked between the rows of children handing out juice boxes and reminding everyone not to leave wrappers on the floor. "Remember," she said with a warm smile, "the museum has real meteorites that you can touch. But only after we listen to the guide." Oliver raised his hand again. "Can I ask an alien scientist 50 questions?" Claire laughed. "Maybe start with 5. Emma quietly leaned toward the window. "Miss Donovan?" "Yes, sweetheart." "I thought I saw another ship." Claire glanced outside. Only stars greeted her. "Probably another cargo transport." Emma nodded, although she was not completely convinced. On the bridge, Megan Foster's expression slowly changed. The unidentified contact had returned. This time it had not disappeared. Instead, it was matching their course from a distance that was shrinking every second. She checked the readings twice before speaking. "Captain, I have positive contact." Mercer walked in carrying the same cup of coffee, although it had gone cold. "Talk to me." "Unknown vessel. Closing fast. No registration signal." Mercer set the cup down without taking another sip. His relaxed smile faded, replaced by the calm focus Claire had not yet seen. "Open a standard greeting." Megan transmitted the message. "Unidentified vessel. This is civilian transport Morningstar operating under Interstellar Education Authority clearance. Please identify yourself." Silence. 5 long seconds passed. Then 10. The radar warning tone sounded again, slightly louder this time. Megan swallowed. Still no response. Mercer looked at the shrinking distance on the display. He did not raise his voice. He simply reached for the bridge intercom. "Claire, this is the captain. I need everyone seated with their seat belts fastened. Tell the kids we are making a small course correction." Claire answered immediately. "Understood. Is everything all right?" Mercer looked through the forward viewport as a dark silhouette slowly emerged against the stars, far larger than any civilian transport had any reason to be. "I hope so," he replied quietly. Before anyone could say another word, every light on the bridge flickered once, and a calm electronic voice echoed through the ship. "Warning. External vessel has initiated unauthorized intercept trajectory. Estimated contact in 4 minutes." The warning chime echoed through every deck, but Captain Daniel Mercer refused to let panic spread faster than the unknown ship. He keyed the intercom with the same calm voice he had used minutes earlier. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a navigation situation ahead. Please remain seated and follow your teacher's instructions. Everything will be all right." Claire looked toward the ceiling speaker, heard the steadiness in his voice, and chose to believe it. "You heard the captain," she said, clapping her hands gently. "Seatbelts on, everybody. This is just like practicing on the school bus." 28 little clicks filled the cabin as children fastened their belts. Oliver leaned toward the window again. "Miss Donovan, are we racing somebody?" Claire smiled, although she could feel her heartbeat climbing. "Not today, buddy." On the bridge, the dark vessel finally emerged in full view. It was long, scarred, and covered with mismatched armor plates that looked as though they had been collected from a dozen different ships. Megan stared at the identification panel. Every database came back blank. "Captain, they are masking their registry." Mercer nodded once. "Open every emergency channel." Megan transmitted on civilian frequencies, commercial frequencies, and regional traffic control. "Unknown vessel. You are approaching an educational transport carrying children. State your intentions immediately." Once again, silence answered. Then another signal appeared. "Magnetic grapples charging. Boarding ports aligning." Megan looked at Mercer. She did not need to ask anymore. He already knew. "Pirates," she whispered. "Looks that way." Mercer reached into a locked compartment beneath the command console and removed a thin emergency handbook rather than a weapon. He opened directly to a page marked Child Passenger Protection Procedures. Years ago, he had laughed when the company required every captain to memorize it. Today, he read every line without skipping a word. "Slow the engines," he instructed quietly. Megan looked surprised. "Captain, do it. We can still try to run." Mercer shook his head. "Not with kindergarten kids on board. If they push the engines beyond safety limits and we lose control, those children become part of the problem. That is not happening." The distance between the two ships continued shrinking. A harsh electronic tone interrupted the bridge. "Incoming transmission." Mercer accepted it. The screen flickered before revealing a broad alien face framed by dark gray armor. Deep yellow eyes examined the bridge with obvious amusement. "Civilian captain," the stranger said through a translator. "Prepare to receive visitors. Cooperate, and your passengers will remain comfortable." Mercer answered without raising his voice. "This ship is carrying young children on a school trip. There is nothing here worth risking them for." The alien leaned closer to the camera. "Everything aboard your ship now belongs to us." The transmission ended. Claire stepped quietly into the bridge a moment later after asking another teacher to watch the class. She saw the concern on Megan's face before she looked at the forward screen. The pirate vessel filled nearly the entire window now. "Daniel," she asked softly, dropping the formal title for the first time that day. "What do you need from me?" Mercer met her eyes. "Keep those children believing this is only a delay. Can you promise me they are safe?" He paused for half a second, choosing honesty over comfort. "I can promise I will make every decision with them first." Claire nodded. "That is enough." Before either of them could say another word, a heavy metallic vibration rolled through the hull. The entire ship trembled gently as automated systems announced in a calm voice. "External docking clamps detected. Unauthorized boarding connection established." The first airlock finished cycling with a deep mechanical thud that echoed through the morning star like distant thunder. Every conversation aboard the ship stopped at once. Captain Daniel Mercer stood alone in the corridor leading to the docking hatch, hands resting calmly at his sides instead of reaching for a weapon that would never change the outcome. Behind him, two crew members looked ready to stand beside him. He gave a slight shake of his head. "Get back to the passengers," he said quietly. "That is where you are needed." Neither argued. They understood exactly what he meant. A few seconds later, the outer hatch unlocked with a loud metallic click. 6 armored pirates stepped through in perfect formation, carrying compact energy rifles that never fired a shot. Their discipline was unsettling. They were not reckless raiders looking for chaos. They moved like professionals who had boarded dozens of civilian ships before. Captain Zhar'Korr entered last, taking his time as his yellow eyes wandered across the clean corridor. Educational posters decorated the walls. Hand-painted stars, finger-painted rockets, crayon drawings signed with children's names. He looked almost disappointed. "This is even smaller than I expected," he muttered. Mercer met his gaze without moving. "There are children aboard." Zhar'Korr smiled. "Yes, we noticed." He stepped closer until only a few feet separated them. "Tell your crew to cooperate. Nobody has to create unnecessary problems." Mercer nodded once. "You will find no resistance." One of the younger pirates laughed. "See? Humans surrender quickly." Zhar'Korr did not answer him. He continued studying Mercer instead. The captain's pulse remained steady. His breathing never changed. There was no begging, no anger, no desperate bargaining, just quiet acceptance that somehow felt completely out of place. Search the ship, Zhar'Korr ordered. Collect valuables. Lock down communications. Nobody leaves. The boarding teams split into smaller groups and disappeared into different hallways. On the passenger deck, Claire Donovan heard heavy footsteps approaching before the classroom doors slid open. Several children gasped, but none screamed. Claire had already knelt beside them. "Remember our safety game," she whispered with a reassuring smile. "Stay together." Quiet voices. "Eyes on me." Oliver looked at the tall, armored strangers with open curiosity instead of fear. "Miss Donovan," he whispered, "are those real aliens?" Claire answered softly, "Yes. Let me do the talking." A pirate glanced around the room, clearly expecting panic. Instead, he found tiny backpacks, lunchboxes decorated with cartoon astronauts, and children sitting exactly where their teacher had asked them to stay. Emma hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter, but stayed in her seat. The pirate tilted his head. "Why are they not crying?" Claire answered before anyone else could. "Because they trust the adults around them." The pirate frowned as though that answer somehow bothered him. Another pirate opened a storage cabinet, expecting expensive equipment. Instead, he found art supplies, coloring books, and plastic model planets. "Captain," he called through his communicator, "this really is a school trip." Zhar'Korr arrived a minute later, looking around the classroom with growing disbelief. "Humans transport their offspring through pirate territory?" Mercer answered evenly from the doorway where he had been escorted. "We teach them not to fear the universe." One pirate picked up a crayon, drawing from a nearby table. It showed smiling aliens and smiling humans holding hands beneath bright stars. The pirate snorted and tossed it back onto the table. Oliver frowned. "Hey," the little boy said, "I worked really hard on that." Several pirates exchanged amused looks, but one remained strangely quiet. Something about the room felt wrong. No one was pleading. No one was running. The silence inside the classroom was far more unsettling than panic would have been. And for the first time since boarding the Morning Star, a few members of the pirate crew began wondering whether they had misunderstood the kind of ship they had chosen to enter. I cannot accurately continue with Part 5 because Part 4 is not available in the current conversation. Writing a continuation without that context would almost certainly break character consistency, timeline, and story continuity, which directly conflicts with your instructions. Please provide Part 4, or the full story so far, and I will then write Part 5 in exactly the format you requested. English only, approximately 500 words, one single block enclosed in one pair of. No line breaks, no title repetition, natural American English for YouTube voiceover, no abbreviations for AI voice, consistent characters, setting, and timeline strong midpoint turning point with high retention leading into Part 6, no extra commentary, notes, questions, or formatting beyond the story itself. Captain Zhar'Korr stood in the middle of the classroom, staring at the silent notifications still glowing across the portable scanner one of his crew had handed him. The words refused to change no matter how many times he refreshed the display. Child protection beacon active. Priority status recognized. His expression hardened. "This is a civilian emergency signal," one pirate said quietly. "It should not affect navigation outside human territory." Another pirate checked the tactical console mounted on his wrist and looked up with visible confusion. "Captain, our jump drive is no longer responding. The system says departure clearance has been suspended." Zhar'Korr grabbed the scanner. "By whom?" "Unknown. There is no military encryption attached to it." He looked toward the bridge of the Morning Star. "Take me to their navigation controls." Mercer walked beside the pirates without resistance. He watched them rush into the bridge, opening panels, checking systems, and trying to override commands that had not existed a few minutes earlier. Megan Foster remained seated with her hands folded where they could be seen. She did not smile. She simply observed the pirates becoming more frustrated every minute. "Disconnect the navigation network," one pirate ordered. Another answered almost immediately. "Already tried." "Override the safety lock." "Denied." "Then shut the entire system down." "Negative. Civilian Protection Authority has locked every command channel." Zhar'Korr stepped toward the main console himself. He entered military override codes stolen from 3 different governments over the years. Every code failed. The display calmly returned the same message. Emergency Child Protection Protocol in effect. Local Transit Authority assumes control. Estimated response units approaching. For the first time since boarding the ship, silence filled the bridge. Mercer quietly picked up the cup of coffee he had abandoned earlier. It was cold now, but he took a slow sip anyway. Zhar'Korr noticed. "You seem unusually relaxed for someone being boarded." Mercer set the cup down. "I am exactly as worried as I should be." "You planned this?" "No," Mercer answered without hesitation. "Nobody plans for pirates to interrupt a kindergarten field trip." Zhar'Korr narrowed his eyes. He believed the human captain was hiding something, yet nothing about the bridge suggested a trap. No hidden weapons. No secret soldiers. No warship waiting nearby. Only ordinary people behaving with remarkable discipline. Back in the classroom, Claire Donovan continued reading from a children's picture book she had found in one of the backpacks. Her voice stayed warm and steady while the children listened closely. Oliver leaned toward Emma and whispered, "Do you think the museum will still be open?" Emma shrugged. "Maybe they will wait for us." One pirate standing guard overheard the conversation and looked away without saying anything. He had expected fear. Instead, he found children worrying about missing a museum tour. The feeling unsettled him more than any weapon could have. Suddenly, another pirate rushed onto the bridge. "Captain." Zhar'Korr turned. "Report. Every long-range communication channel is filling with automated priority traffic. We cannot clear the queue." "Ignore it." "We cannot." New signals keep arriving every few seconds. The bridge speakers came alive with calm electronic announcements. Civilian rescue services acknowledging emergency beacon. Regional traffic authority rerouting nearby vessels. Medical response teams accepting dispatch. Merchant convoys altering course. Independent patrol craft confirming interception route. None of the messages came from the human military. Zhar'Korr stared at the endless stream of confirmations scrolling across the display. This was no fleet preparing for battle. It was something far stranger. The galaxy itself seemed to be moving toward one small classroom full of children, and outside the forward viewport, the first distant engine signatures began appearing against the stars. The first ship to appear was not a human warship. It was an aging civilian rescue cutter with faded orange markings and a medical emblem painted across its hull. A second vessel arrived less than 30 seconds later, this one a commercial cargo tug. Then came a passenger liner, a planetary customs patrol, an independent salvage crew. More engine signatures filled the tactical display until the stars themselves seemed to come alive. Every few seconds another ship altered course toward the morning star. Zhar'Korr stared at the growing list in disbelief. "Identify them," he ordered. One pirate worked frantically across the scanner. "They are not from the same government." Another looked up. "Not even the same species." The bridge fell quiet again. Mercer glanced at the screen without changing his expression. "That is faster than I expected." Zhar'Korr turned sharply. "What exactly did your beacon transmit?" "Nothing unusual," Mercer answered. "It simply reported that a civilian educational vessel carrying young children required immediate assistance. That cannot attract this many ships." Mercer looked through the forward viewport where more lights emerged from hyperspace. "You have spent your career studying fear. You never studied trust." On the passenger deck, Claire Donovan continued keeping the children focused on anything except the strangers standing nearby. She asked them questions about planets they had hoped to visit. Oliver proudly described the museum gift shop he wanted to see. Emma quietly showed another little girl how to fold a paper star from the back of a snack wrapper. Even the pirate assigned to watch the classroom found himself listening. One small boy looked up at him. "Mister, do you have kids?" The pirate hesitated so long that Claire wondered if the translator had failed. Finally, he answered in a softer voice than anyone expected. "Yes." "Do they like space?" the boy asked. The pirate gave the smallest nod. "They do." Before another word could be spoken, alarms sounded across both ships. Not attack alarms. Traffic priority alerts. Navigation channels automatically opened as one comm transmission after another filled the bridge. Civilian rescue vessel Aurora requesting visual confirmation of child passengers. Regional medical network standing by. Merchant coalition convoy 7 holding position to establish a safe perimeter. Independent patrol wing requesting status update. Zhar'Korr looked at the communication log in disbelief. None of them asked who controlled the ship. None demanded payment. Every transmission asked exactly one question. Were the children safe? One of his senior officers swallowed hard. Captain, they are forming a protective corridor. Tactical projections showed dozens of ships placing themselves between the pirate vessel and every possible escape route, not with weapons charged, but with coordinated flight patterns that left almost no path into open space. They had arrived independently, yet somehow moved like crews that had rehearsed this moment for years. Zhar'Korr clenched his jaw. Transmit on every frequency. Tell them this is a private salvage operation. The message went out. Seconds later, the first reply arrived from an elderly cargo captain whose weathered face filled the screen. Son, I hauled freight for 40 years. I know exactly what a school transport looks like. Back away from those kids. The channel closed before Zhar'Korr could answer. Another face replaced it. Then another. Civilian pilots. Rescue workers. Merchant captains. Patrol officers from worlds he had robbed in the past. Different uniforms. Different languages. Different species. Every one of them delivered the same simple message. Leave the children alone. Zhar'Korr slowly realized something he had never considered possible. He had not challenged one human ship. He had crossed a line that the entire civilized galaxy had quietly agreed should never be crossed, and the distant glow of even larger engine signatures was beginning to appear beyond the growing wall of civilian vessels. Captain Zhar'Korr had spent his entire career believing that fear moved faster than compassion. Looking through the bridge viewport now, he watched that belief fall apart one ship at a time. The civilian vessels surrounding the Morning Star were not heavily armed. Many were older than his own cruiser. Some carried rescue markings. Others hauled freight containers or passengers. Yet together they had created something stronger than a blockade. They had created a promise. Nobody was leaving until every child aboard the school transport was safe. One of the pirates hurried onto the bridge, breathing harder than before. Captain, we have scanned every vessel that has arrived. Zhar'Korr turned. Report. Most of them cannot defeat us in a direct fight. Another pirate looked equally confused. Then why are they staying? Mercer answered before anyone else could. Because they are not measuring the odds. They are measuring what is worth protecting. Zhar'Korr ignored him and opened a fleet-wide channel. Attention, all civilian ships. Withdraw immediately. This matter does not concern you. The response came almost instantly. It was not from an admiral or a politician. It was the elderly cargo captain again. You are wrong. The moment children are involved, it concerns everybody. Before Zhar'Korr could respond, another transmission interrupted. A rescue pilot. Our medical bays are ready. Then another. A passenger liner captain. We have extra food, blankets, and counselors standing by. Another voice followed from an alien customs officer with silver skin. Our patrol will escort the school trip the rest of the way. None of them threatened him. None demanded revenge. Every transmission focused on the same goal. Protect the children. Claire Donovan quietly walked into the bridge after making sure another teacher remained with the class. She stood beside Mercer and looked through the viewport at the growing wall of ships. I have never seen strangers show up this fast, she whispered. Mercer smiled faintly. Parents, teachers, rescue workers. We all learn the same lesson eventually, which is, children should never have to wonder whether adults will come. Claire nodded without taking her eyes off the stars. Back in the classroom, Oliver looked at the pirate guard again. Does this mean we are getting rescued? The pirate hesitated before answering. I think someone is coming. Emma held up another folded paper star and offered it to him. You look nervous. He stared at the tiny paper decoration for several seconds before quietly accepting it. On the pirate flagship, several crew members began lowering their weapons without being ordered. The atmosphere had changed. They no longer felt like conquerors standing aboard a helpless transport. They felt like unwanted guests in a place the entire galaxy had claimed as sacred. Suddenly the tactical display chimed again. A new group of engine signatures emerged beyond the civilian perimeter. Larger, faster, organized in perfect formation. Every ship already surrounding the Morning Star immediately shifted aside, opening a clear corridor without a single command being issued. Zhar'Korr frowned. Who are they making room for? His scanner identified the incoming vessels one after another. Interstellar Child Protection Service. Joint Civilian Security Authority. Emergency Transit Marshals. None belonged exclusively to Earth. None were military fleets built for conquest. They existed for one purpose only: protecting civilian lives during extraordinary emergencies. Mercer looked at the display and quietly picked up his cold cup of coffee again. Now, he said, almost to himself, the people who actually handle situations like this have arrived. Zhar'Korr suddenly understood the mistake he had made. He had prepared for soldiers. He had underestimated a civilization that had spent generations building systems designed to protect its youngest citizens, and even worse, those values had spread far beyond humanity. The trap had never been hidden weapons or secret warships. It had been a galaxy that refused to look away once innocent children needed help, and the lead rescue command ship was already requesting permission to come aboard. The lead rescue command ship docked without sirens, without dramatic speeches, and without a single warning shot. Its officers stepped aboard with calm confidence earned from years of protecting civilians across hundreds of worlds. Their uniforms carried different colors and symbols than any human military branch, yet every badge represented the same promise. Children came first. Captain Daniel Mercer watched as the senior rescue officer approached Captain Zhar'Korr. "This incident is now under the authority of the Interstellar Child Protection Service," she said evenly. "Your crew will return every civilian item you collected and depart this vessel under escort. You will answer for your actions through the proper legal channels." Zhar'Korr looked through the open hatch toward the countless ships still surrounding them. Nobody celebrated. Nobody shouted insults. Nobody demanded revenge. The rescue officer simply waited for his answer. After a long silence, Zhar'Korr slowly removed the command insignia from his armor and placed it on a nearby console. "We will comply," he said quietly. Around him, one pirate after another lowered their equipment and stepped back without argument. The fight they had expected had never come. Instead, they had been defeated by something they had never learned to understand. Claire Donovan gathered the children once the last pirate left the classroom. "All right, everybody," she said with the same warm smile she had worn that morning. "Who still wants to visit the museum?" 28 little hands shot into the air. Laughter filled the room so naturally that it almost erased the tension of the past hour. Oliver looked up at Captain Mercer. "I told you today was going to be exciting." Mercer finally laughed, the deep, genuine laugh he had been holding back since the warning alarm first sounded. "Next time," he replied. "Let us aim for exciting without the unexpected visitors." Emma noticed that the pirate who had accepted her folded paper star was waiting quietly near the docking hatch under escort. She walked over before anyone could stop her and held up another carefully folded star. "This one is for your kids," she said. The pirate stared at the tiny paper shape resting in his hand. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Thank you." He looked down for a long moment before adding, "I hope they never make the mistakes that I did." Emma smiled. "Then tell them this story." Hours later, the Morning Star finally reached the Galactic History Museum. The children poured onto the observation platform as though nothing extraordinary had happened. They raced toward the exhibits, argued over which planet looked the coolest, and begged Claire for extra time in the gift shop. Life moved forward exactly as childhood should. Several weeks later, Captain Zhar'Korr stood before an interstellar tribunal. He expected discussions about stolen cargo, navigation violations, or piracy. Instead, the first question surprised him. At what moment did you realize you had already lost? He thought about hidden weapons. There had been none. He thought about soldiers. None had boarded his ship. Finally, he answered with complete honesty. The moment complete strangers changed their course for children they had never met. The room fell silent because everyone understood the answer. Long after the case was closed, the story of the Morning Star spread across the trade routes, not as a tale about pirates, rescue ships, or legal proceedings, but as a reminder of something far more important. Civilizations were not measured by the size of their fleets or the reach of their empires. They were measured by what they chose to protect when nobody forced them to care. The pirates believed humanity was vulnerable because it trusted the galaxy with its children. They discovered far too late that humanity trusted because it had spent generations teaching the galaxy that protecting the innocent was everyone's responsibility. And in the end, the greatest strength was never the power to win a fight. It was the ability to inspire countless strangers to stand together without being asked.